स्वरूपम् ब्रजभावयुक्तम् योगीन्द्रमीड्यम् भवरोगवैद्यम् गुरुं कृपालुं प्रणमामि नित्यम्। रसोऽयः परमानन्द एक एव द्विधा सदा श्री राधा कृष्ण रूपाभ्यां तस्मै नमो नमः। नमः कमलना भाय नमः कमलमालिने नमः कमलपादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षण यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तद्ग्वं देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। The most fortunate, the most blessed of divine souls, as it is a custom, let us chant his glorious name for a few minutes, and thereafter we will discuss the subject on hand. राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद राधे गोविंद
गोविंद
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
मोहि ऐसी विरह वेदना दे मोहि ऐसी विरह वेदना दे रैन दिन गाऊं गोविंद राधे
मोहि ऐसी विरह वेदना दे रैन दिन गाऊं गोविंद राधे
रैन दिन गाऊं गोविंद राधे
रैन दिन गाऊं गोविंद राधे
मोहि ऐसी विरह वेदना दे रैन दिन गाऊं गोविंद राधे
मोहि ऐसी विरह वेदना दे रैन दिन गाऊं गोविंद राधे
राधे गोविंद
गोविंद
राधे गोविंद
गोविंद
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
मोहि दासी की दासी बना दे मोहि दासी की दासी बना दे कोई सेवा मुझे भी दिला दे
मोहि दासी की दासी बना दे कोई सेवा मुझे भी दिला दे
मोहि दासी की दासी बना दे कोई सेवा मुझे भी दिला दे
मोहि दासी की दासी बना दे कोई सेवा मुझे भी दिला दे
राधे गोविंद
गोविंद
राधे गोविंद
गोविंद
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद
बोले वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की
जय।
श्रीमद सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। The bhajan that I have chosen to expand on is from the Premras Madhira, Siddhant Madhuri. अरे मन इह सार संसार, let us just briefly go over the meaning. In this bhajan, Shri Maharaj is saying, Are man, O mind, the only worthwhile, substantial thing in this unsubstantial, worthless, unreal world is Sur durlabh tanu paay bhajan karu nishidin nand kumar. That you may continuously practice devotion to Shyam Sundar, having attained this most precious human form and this human body which is inaccessible, unattainable even by the celestial beings, heavenly gods. Lagat na dam chadam yam basu sumiru sham sarkar. Just think, in order to remember him, to meditate on him, you do not have to spend even a single cent. It will not cost you anything. And therefore, think day and night only about him. Hari vyapak sansar ek ras prati paramanu majhar. And Shyam Sundar, being all merciful, pervades equally and evenly each and every particle of this world. Therefore, tinke naam roop gun gavat ka ghati jat tihar. What will you lose by singing the glories of his names, divine virtues, and meditating on his beautifully all-attractive divine form? Jhuto jap tap jog yag vrat naam dharma achar. And all these other practices, such as counting beads, repeating the name, simple repetition on a set of beads, or performing austerities, yoga, sacrifices, observing fasts, rituals, rites, regulations, moral codes, etc. All these practices cannot liberate you from the bondage of Maya. Hari binu sukh kripalu nahi sapne hu pachi pachi mariye hazar. So Shri Maharaj says in the last line that without surrendering yourself to Shyam Sundar, to Shri Krishna, the attainment of happiness is not possible even in your dreams. Although you may make an effort, you may endeavor to do so by practicing millions of other means until the end of your lifetime. So this is in Saransh, in brief, the meaning of this verse. We'll sing a few lines first.
संसार
संसार हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
सुर दुर्लभ तनु पाय भजन करूं
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 निशीदिन नंद कुमार हरे मन
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 है सार संसार हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
हरे मन
हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
So in the very first line of this bhajan, Shri Maharaj Ji is making a proclamation, a declaration that this world is hollow. It is worthless. In other words, there's nothing substantial to obtain from this world. The happiness that we have been searching for since eternal time can only be attained through the attainment of the Supreme Personality of God, that is, Shri Krishna. And if we carefully examine our own experiences and reflect on the nature of the world and worldly attachments, we will also come to the same conclusion, and that is that this world is devoid of happiness. And logically thinking, had there been happiness in this world, then everyone would have been happy at all times. What we do experience, however, is a temporary relief from sorrows, which we mistake for genuine happiness. Moreover, the individuals and objects we think to be a source of happiness ultimately prove to be sources of unhappiness. Proceeding further, you may be aware of the fact that there exist many other universes besides the one we are living in. One amongst them is Swargalok, the celestial abodes. People generally think Swarg to be a place of unlimited happiness. But expecting happiness in Swarg is just like merely like expecting happiness, the grass, rather, to be greener on the other side of the fence, as we say. Why? Firstly, let us take a look at the levels, the various levels of happiness in the various universes in comparison to the happiness, as temporary and as little or limited as it may be, on this earth. So levels of happiness in comparison to the happiness found on earth. Our scriptures tell us that the Upanishad states, Saisha nandasya mimansa bhavati yuva syat sadhu yuva dhyayakaha ashishto dridishto balishto tasyeyam prithvi sarva vittasya purna syat sa eko manush anandaha. Meaning, imagine there to be a man in the prime of his youth who is strong, healthy, handsome, learned, virtuous, wealthy, and who governs the entire world. Such a man would be considered the happiest man in this world, on earth. Taking this to be the topmost limit of happiness found on earth, the Taittiriya Upanishad measures its insignificance in comparison to the happiness found in the other abodes, in the other universes. It tells us, Te ye shatam manusha anandah se eko manushya gandharvanam anandah. Te ye shatam manushya gandharvanam anandah se eko dev gandharvanam anandah. Te ye shatam dev gandharvanam anandah se ekah pitrinam chirlok lokanam anandah. Te ye shatam pitrinam chirlok lokanam anandah sa ek ajana janam devanam anandah, and so on. In other words, the combined happiness of millions of such kings on earth is equal to the happiness of one Manushya Gandharv. And the combined happiness of millions of such Manushya Gandharv is equal to the happiness of one Dev Gandharv. And the combined happiness of millions of such Dev Gandharvs is equal to the happiness, can be compared to the happiness found in Pitrilok. And if the happiness in Pitrilok is multiplied millions of times, it would equal the happiness of one Ajanaj Karmadev. And the combined happiness of millions of such Karamdevas constitutes the happiness of one Nityadev. And the happiness of Nityadev multiplied millions of times equals the happiness of one Indra. Multiply Indra's happiness into millions and you will have an idea of Brihaspati's happiness. And the combined happiness of millions of such Brihaspatis equals the happiness of one Prajapati. And the total happiness of millions of Prajapatis equals the happiness of one Brahma. But genuine bliss cannot be found even in the abode of Brahma. The Gita states, Brahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartinorjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. 8:16. Lord Krishna reveals to Arjuna that from the abode of Brahma downwards, all the abodes are subject to rebirth and death, and therefore they are devoid of happiness. And yet, we people plan to attain happiness by becoming million, billion, and trillionaires, when there is not even an iota of happiness in the realm of Brahma, which contains the highest level of material happiness within the material realm. You see, just as a cow experiences the same pleasure in grazing on green grass as does the king in dining on various delicacies, though outwardly there seems to be a vast difference between the two. And it is this external difference that leads us to believe that though this world is devoid of happiness, if we reach to this level of realization that there's no happiness in this world, it leads us to believe that this world may be devoid of happiness, but there must be happiness in the other universes, in the other abodes. Before we acquire something, our ignorance makes us believe that we will attain happiness once we acquire it. But upon acquisition, upon attainment, the pleasure we derive from that object is only temporary. And yet, we never tire of our unsuccessful attempts and always believe happiness to be waiting for us at the next corner. When a child is at school, he cannot wait to complete his education. After completing his education, he feels that he will be happy once he gets a good job. But even if he gets a good job, he's still not happy. Why? Because he wants to be promoted to the next level. In this way, he will continue to desire further and further promotions and will not be satisfied, even if he were to be given the seat of Indra, the king of heaven. Why? Because even Indra desires the seat of Brahma, the creator. Surpatir Brahmam Padam Yachate, Sukti. The scriptures tell us that there's no end to desires. The Bhagavad explains, Yat prithivyam vrihiyavam hiranyam pashavasтрiyah nalamekasya paryaptam tasmat trishnam parityajet. 9:19-13. The Bhagavad tells us that even if an individual were to be given all the opulence, all the wealth of innumerable universes, he will still be desirous of more. Trishnana jirna vayameva jirnaha. Hitopdesh. Saint Bhartrihari says, desires never grow old, they never die. Instead, they rejuvenate themselves. They constantly renew, revive themselves. Trishna tu tarunayate. Desire is so great. Desire is so great that it has been considered even greater than God. Imagine. The Bhagavad again tells us, Girir mahan girir abdhir mahan abdhir nabho mahat nabhasopi parabrahma tato pyasha duratyaya. Meaning, a mountain is big, but bigger still, bigger than the mountain is the ocean. Greater still greater than the ocean is the sky. Greater than the sky is God. But even greater than God is desire. Our endless desires. We have wasted countless lives in trying to satisfy these desires, but all our efforts have been in vain. We find that in spite of being fulfilled, we are ever, in spite of having all the possessions that one may possibly require, we are ever desirous of more. There is, however, a unique example of a devotee by the name of Kunti, who is mentioned in the Bhagavad. When Kunti was asked to request a boon by Lord Krishna himself, she asked for something that no one could ever think of asking, that we could never think of asking. What did she ask for? Vipadah santu nah shashvat tatra tatra Jagadguru Bhavato darshanam yatsya dapunar bhavadarshanam. 1:825 Bhagavad. She said, "Oh, my Lord, I beg you for problems at every step in my life." You may wonder, why did Kunti beg for problems in her life instead of wealth and riches? Again, the Bhagavad tells us in the next verse, 1:826, that worldly possessions stop an individual from entering the path of devotion, whereas the absence of worldly riches makes him realize his pitiable condition and inspires him to raise his eyes upwards towards God. But our way of thinking is completely the opposite. We think prosperity to be a sign of God's grace, but never poverty. I don't think there's anyone in the world who would pray to God for sorrow and suffering in life, as in the case of Kunti. If given the choice, we would all pick wealth instead. Why? We are ignorant of the fact. Artho narthasya karanam sukti. The scriptures tell us that excess wealth is the cause behind spiritual downfall. Nahi ko as janama jag mahi prabhuta pai jai mad nahi. Worldly opulence makes a person blind to God. Have you ever seen an extremely wealthy man crying for God? True, he will help build a temple of God, but will he ever step inside and actually worship him? However, there are always exceptions to every rule. You see, there are 4 kinds of people in this world. First, there are those, the first kind includes those who possess both, who are both spiritually inclined and materialistically endowed. Very few people belong to this first category, because generally if a person is rich, he does not have time for God. Extremely rich. The second kind consists of those who are neither spiritually inclined nor do they possess material wealth. And very few people belong in this category as well, because when a person is poor, he generally turns towards God. And the third kind are those who possess material wealth alone, but are completely devoid of spirituality. Blinded by the arrogance of their material wealth, they feel no need to worship God. There's only one cure for such an individual. The Western scriptures say, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. You see, the intoxication of wealth is so strong that not even God and the saints can make such an individual understand his piteous condition, spiritually speaking. So the Bhagavad states that there's only one cure for him. Asatah Shrimadandhasya Daridryam Paramam Janam Atma Upamyena Bhutani Daridraha Paramikshate. 10, 10, 13. Please pay attention. In other words, the scriptures tell us that a wealth-intoxicated person will come to his senses only when the cause of his pride, that is, material wealth, is taken away from him. There's no other way. Perhaps this is the reason why God and Guru reinforce again and again that we should give in every way possible. Now the fourth kind of individuals are those who are deprived of material wealth but are spiritually inclined. This is quite natural because when a person has no worldly possessions to be proud of, he generally turns towards God. But for an opulent person to be interested in spiritual matters is a rare occurrence. It happens rarely. But such individuals do exist. As Lord Krishna explained in the Gita, Prapya punya kritam loka nushitva shashvati samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yoga bhrashto bhijayate. 641. These are individuals who have already earned 90%, 95%, 80% of spiritual power. In their previous births, they have earned tremendous spiritual merit through the practice of devotion in the course of their innumerable past lives, and have had to take birth again in order to acquire the remaining 10%, 15%, or 5%. So it is only such fortunate souls who remain unattached to the world, even while being in the possession of material wealth. On the other hand, there are also those who remain indifferent to God, even while being in the absence of material possessions. This again is quite unnatural because the lack of material property and wealth, as I said before, turns a person towards God, even if it is just to beg Him for the world. There's a divine law established by God. Tam bhranshayami sampadbhyo yasya chechamyanugraham. 10:27-16 Bhagavad. God says, I take away worldly property from the individual whom I wish to grace. These are really important words and are of the greatest help to real seekers on the path of devotion. Why? Because it is said that the ignorance of this divine law causes a downfall of many seekers who consider the loss of material wealth and property to be a sign of God's wrath, God's anger, and believe God to be merciful only when He endows them with material wealth. He blesses them with worldly riches. But Lord Krishna states the opposite. He says, Yasyaham nugrihanami harishye tadhanam shanaihi. Bhagavad. Again, 10:88-8. He says, I deprive that individual of worldly possessions upon whom I wish to bestow my grace, so that he may claim nothing as his own except me. So you see, the loss of worldly possessions is also an indication of God's grace. For example, just as a mother takes away toys from her child who's neglecting to drink his milk because of them, in the same way, God slowly takes away material possessions from the most fortunate soul who's deserving of His grace. When, going back to the example of the child, when the toys are no longer in front of the child, he remembers that he's hungry and cries for milk. Hearing him cry, the mother immediately comes to him and satisfies his hunger. In the same way, when an individual undergoes material loss, he feels himself destitute from the most innermost recesses of his heart. He then calls out to God, his divine spiritual mother, with a cry of distress. And it is only then that the divine mother comes to him and satisfies his genuine hunger. Being deprived of the world, even the Narad Panchratram states, is an indication of God's grace. Deshatyago mahan vyadhir virodho bandhu bihisaha dhanha nirpamanam cha madanugraha lakshanam. God takes away everything from us so that we may truly say to Him, Tumeva mata cha pita tumeva, tumeva bandhushcha sakha tumeva, tumeva vidya dravinam tumeva, tumeva sarvam mama deva deva. You alone are my mother and my father. You alone are my brother and friend. You alone are my knowledge and my wealth. You alone are my everything. However, this does not mean that if you have a mother and a father that you should renounce them. Or if you have wealth and property, you should destroy it. No. It means that you should not become attached. We must keep the mind, remember? We must always bear in mind that we must always keep the mind detached from the world. You need not divorce your husband or your wife, nor is there need to disown the children. But what we must do is to perform our duty towards them, but to have the mind attached to Shri Krishna at all times, to Hari and Guru. As Lord Krishna says in the Gita, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmar. In the words of Swami Shri Ramakrishna Paramhans, he has beautifully said, let the boat rest on the water. Let the boat rest on the water, but let not the water rest on the boat. In other words, we must live in the world, but we must not allow the world to live in us, live inside of us. Let us understand one more aspect of this world and worldly objects. The acquisition, the attainment of all worldly possessions is preceded, accompanied, and followed by sorrow and suffering. The Bhagavad Puran relates the story of a king by the name of Chitraketu. Chitraketu was married to 10 million women. Must be in a different era, different age. Satyug, I believe. They had divine powers. So he was married to 10 million. But still had no children. Consequently, he invoked God's blessings by observing severe penance, a strict spiritual discipline. Ultimately, pleased with his austerity, the sages, Naraji and Angiras, appeared before the king and gave him their blessings. As a result, in due course of time, the eldest queen gave birth to a son. You can imagine Chitraketu's joy. There was no limit to his joy. But unfortunately, his joy was very short-lived. Why? Because all the other queens, 10 million of them, minus one, all the other queens became so jealous and envious that they poisoned the little child. So unfortunately, the king was back to zero, nil children. So you see, the acquisition of a son was preceded, accompanied, and followed by sorrow and suffering, by grief. In the same way, the pain suffered by a mother for 9 months before giving birth can only be realized by another woman who has gone through the same ordeal. Now you may think that after the woman has gone through the ordeal of giving birth, she must be happy. Yes, no doubt the mother experiences temporary happiness, but shortly thereafter, her worries begin to multiply. She must devote all her time to the child, making sure he's properly fed and well taken care of. You can imagine the condition of the mother when her child develops the slightest cold or a fever. She's afraid to admit it to anyone. In fact, she's reluctant to admit it to herself, but she constantly worries about her child's death. So the point is that the acquisition of a child is preceded, accompanied, and followed by pain, fear, and worries. Therefore, there's nothing but sorrow and suffering in all the 3 stages. That is, attaining an object, maintaining, and losing an object. Therefore, the saints suggest to us, they advise us that wisdom lies in realizing that there's no happiness in this universe, right from this world to the realm of Brahma. It is only when we convince ourselves of this truth that our attachment to this world will gradually come to an end. The scriptures tell us to always keep this, the saints tell us to always keep this simple formula in mind. Jehi te kachu nij swarath hoi, tehi par mamata kar sab koi. Where there's some selfish interest, there's some love. Where there's more selfish interest, there's more love. Where there's no self-interest, there's no love. So you understand that if we stop expecting happiness from the world, our attachment to this world will automatically come to an end. But there still remains one other question unanswered. We've already discussed the fact that this world is devoid of happiness in detail. But is there now, the question arises, all right, we understand that there's no happiness in this world, but is there any sorrow in the world? No. Just as this world is devoid of happiness, so it is devoid of sorrow as well. How? Well, we can use the same logic to prove the non-existence of happiness in the world that we use to prove the non-existence of happiness in the world, to prove the non-existence of sorrow in the world as well. Had there been sorrow in the world, then everyone would have been miserable. No one would have been happy. It would have been experienced by everyone alike and at all times. But that is not so. The saints, what do the saints say? saints such as Tulsi, Sur, Meera, Nanak, Kabir, etc., they say, Sarvaha Sukhmaya Dishaha. Siya Ramamay Sab Jag Jani. Uma Je Ram Charan Rat. Vigat Kam Mad Krodh. निज प्रभु माया देखहि जगत कासन करहि विरोध. They say they experience the divine bliss of their beloved Lord in each and every particle of the world. A saint has beautifully said, बाटन में घाटन में बीथिन में बागन में बेलिन में बाटिका में फूलन में बन में दरन में दीवारिन में देहरी दरीचन में भूषण में हीरन में हारन में भूषण में तन में कानन में कुंजन में गोपिन में गायन में गोकुल में गोधन में दामनी में घन में जहाँ जहाँ देखूं तहाँ शाम ही दिखाई देत मेरो शाम छाए रहो नैनन में मन में. Shaligram. They experience all the 10 directions to be saturated with divine bliss. With bliss and bliss alone. Anand evadhastat, anand uprishtat, anandah purastat, anandah paschat, anand uttarataha, anando dakshinataha, anand eve dagvam sarvam. Chandogya Upanishad 8.2.5. They experience happiness inside, outside, in the east, in the west, to the north, to the south, below, above, and all around. Then how can we say there is sorrow in the world? And if you have no faith in saints, in the words of the saints, then we must take a good look at our own selves. The worldly people, our own selves, ourselves. It is our own personal experience that while some experience sorrow from a certain object, others experience happiness from it, while some others experience neither happiness nor sorrow from it. Furthermore, the sorrow we experience, we derive from a particular object, is directly proportionate to the sorrow that we derive not only from an object but also a person, is directly proportionate to the happiness we experience through them. If someone does not give us any pleasure, then he will not give us any sorrow either. For example, if someone rejoices when a child is born to them, then he will also cry at the time of his death. Meanwhile, a neighbor is indifferent to the child's birth, and he will also be indifferent to his death as well. Although outwardly he will begrudgingly attend the funeral to keep up with social relations, he may put up such a terrific act that no one would be able to tell what his true feelings are. At the funeral, he may act like his own son had died. But in reality, what is the reality? In reality, he is indifferent to the deceased. Why? Because he does not consider him to be a source of happiness. So the point is, so you understand, that once we realize that there's neither happiness nor sorrow in the world, and that whatever we experience is a result of our own reflections, our own thoughts, our own attachments formed by our own mind, we will become neutral towards the world, reveal the saints. In other words, we will feel neither love nor hatred for the world. Kabira khada bazar mein sabki mange khair, na kahu so dosti, na kahu so bair. So the point is, whether we love or hate someone in the world, the result is the attachment of the mind. And the consequence is the same in both cases. What is the consequence? You see, both love as well as hatred cause the heart to melt. For example, take some wax and melt it until it becomes almost liquid. Now, add some color to this melted wax and let it cool. After the wax has cooled, at this point, the color will have penetrated into the wax so deeply that it would be impossible to separate the two. They would have become one. In the same way, our heart melts in love as well as in hatred. The person we love becomes as much a part of us as the person we detest. Why? Because the heart melts in both cases, in love and hatred. Now, just as it melts in love, in worldly love and hatred, it melts just as much in our spiritual relationship with God as well. The only difference is, if it melts for the world, we attain the world. If it melts for God, we attain God. Kamam krodham bhayam sneha maikyam sauhardameva cha nityam harau vidhato yanti tanmayatam hite. Bhagavad 10:29-15. So, to conclude, the saints advise us, the scriptures are telling us, that we must take a firm decision regarding the world. We must take a firm decision that there is no happiness whatsoever in the world. The moment we do this, we will no longer be attached to this world. This, of course, requires constant practice. We have to divert our mind from the world to God. How is this made possible? You've heard many times. Lord Krishna reveals to us, giving the following advice to Arjuna. Asanshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham jalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. 635 Gita. Lord Krishna says, yes, indeed, granted that the mind is fickle, unsteady, forceful, and almost impossible to control, yet it can be controlled by constant practice and non-attachment, renunciation. Steady practice strengthens the renunciation. They both work hand in hand, each strengthening the other. To give you an example, when you were a child, you loved your mother and father the most. As a teenager, you thought your friends were your world. When you got married, your love was diverted towards your husband or wife. A woman thinks her husband to be the center of her life, the center of her existence. But only until a child is born to her. After giving birth, she herself feels that the love she had for her husband is no longer the strongest. Now it is the child she loves the most. But all these people are like the stars stars are seen in the sky, you see one star, then you see a bigger star, then you see an even bigger and brighter star. But when the sun appears, with the appearance of the sun on the horizon, all the stars disappear instantly. In the same way, God is the sun, and the recipients of our love in the world are like the stars. When God, the sun, appears in the horizon of our heart, all the stars, worldly people and objects, disappear instantly. They make a quick exit. The Patanjali states, Abhyas vairagya bhyam tan nirodha. The restless mind can be brought under control through constant practice and non-attachment. Scriptures are repeating again and again. Constant practice and non-attachment or renunciation. And this can only be done by constant reflection, by constantly reflecting on the reality of this world. And that is coming to the realization that this world is devoid of both happiness as well as sorrow. As Shri Maharaj has pointed out, has indicated in this bhajan, that this world is hollow. It is unsubstantial. There's neither happiness nor sorrow in the world. In other words, this detachment will only come when we realize that there's neither happiness nor sorrow in the world. And once we reach this stage, once we reach this stage of development in our spiritual life, then we will be fully prepared to attach our mind, to surrender our mind to God and Guru. I will continue on with this subject next week, detaching the mind. Until then, Bole Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki, Srimad Sadhguru Sarkar ki Jai. We have a few minutes, so we'll sing the rest of the bhajan. संसार अरे मन
सार संसार हरे मन
हरि व्यापक संसार एक रस
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 प्रति परमाणु मझार हरे मन
प्रति परमाणु मझार हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
होई है सार संसार हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
झूठो जप तप जोग याग व्रत
झूठो जप तप जोग याग व्रत
जोग याग व्रत
योग याग व्रत
नेम धर्म आचार हरे मन
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 है सार संसार हरे मन
है सार संसार हरे मन
हरि बिनु सुख कृपालु नहीं सपने हूँ
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 पची पची मरिय हजार हरे मन
पची पची मारी हजार हरे मन
पची पची मरिय हजार हरे मन
हरे मन
हरे मन है सार संसार। हरे मन
है सार संसार। हरे मन
है सार संसार। हरे मन
सार संसार। हरे मन।
बोले वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की
जय।
श्रीमद सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।